Hello students, welcome back to my class. As you know that we are doing P.B. Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. I have already given you an introduction to the poet as well as to the poem. So now we'll do stanza-wise or canto-wise analysis of the poem. So Ode to the West Wind is a poem written by the English Romantic poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. And this poem was written in the woods outside Florence in Italy in the autumn of 1819. It was first published in 1820. In the poem, the speaker directly addresses the west wind and treats it as a force of death and decay. But he welcomes this death and decay because it is that rejuvenation and rebirth will come soon. In the final two sections of the poem, the speaker suggests that he wants to help promote this rebirth through his own poetry, and that rejuvenation he hopes to see is both political and poetic, a rebirth of society and its ways of writing. So now let's read the first canto. Now first I'll read the poem. This is the first canto. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet birds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors, plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. Now here, this poet, he's addressing the west wind directly. So he's addressing the wind as, O wild west wind, wild west wind. So this wind, in this poem actually, in this stanza, he is actually expressing the power of the west wind, the power that is the destructive power, the power which has the power to destroy the leaves and all this. This is in this stanza, he is actually expressing the power of the west wind on land, the effect of the west wind on land. So he says that, O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being. That is, here this is autumn is personified. He's saying that you are the breath of autumn's being, that autumn is personified and you are the breath of autumn. Now this personification is activated. How do you know that it is a personification? That is, over here autumn is being capitalized. So personification is through capitalization, and then it is the breath. The west wind is the breath of autumn. So this is personified, that autumn is a human being and he is breathing. And thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven, like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Now here he is describing the act. It is actually a natural act that in the time of autumn the leaves fall off from the trees. And here he is saying that these leaves which have fallen from the trees, they are being carried away by the west wind. And he says that west wind is not visible, but his unseen presence can be felt by the dead leaves. How? Because these leaves are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Now what is the ghost? Ghost होता है भूत. And enchanter कौन होता है? भूतों को कौन भगाते हैं? Tantric. So enchanter is the person who actually resolves the cases of these ghosts, who are the ones who can control the ghosts. So, as when a ghost sees an enchanter, he flees or he flies away. भाग जाता है वो, जैसे तांत्रिक को देख के भूत भाग जाते हैं. So this is how the leaves are running away. It is a simile. So the leaves are running away as if the enchanter is following them. As the ghosts, they fly away from the enchanter. Now he says, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes. Now here, what is the color of the leaves? The dead leaves. Some of the leaves, they are yellow, some are black, some are pale, some are hectic red. Though this color shows that yellow and black and pale and hectic red, but the word pestilence-stricken. What is pestilence-stricken? Pestilence is a disease which is widespread, and then it is very fatal, and so many people have died in this. So pestilence-stricken is actually, it focuses on the symbolic death and disease. तो पेस्टिलेंस होता है, जैसे पेस्टिलेंस स्ट्रिकन, जैसे महामारी जो बहुत ज़्यादा व्यापक तौर पे फैल जाती है, दैट इज़ पेस्टिलेंस स्ट्रिकन. तो यू फील दैट these leaves, they are compared to the dead bodies of the people who have died during the disease. So he says that yellow and black and pale, though these colors are bright, like yellow, black, hectic red, all these, but they do not show the healthy color. Rather, what happens? It shows the death. It is symbolic of death and disease. So yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes. Multitudes is a number of people, lots of people. So he says, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave. So he says that this, first let me tell you about this image of this yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitude. This image is not very charming or peaceful or comforting. It is very dreary, and it is very scary because it is symbolizing death and disease. So he says that thou is you. This is the old word. This is archaic word. He says, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed. Now chariot, what is the meaning of chariot? Chariot is a vehicle driven by the horses. It's a cart driven by the horses. जैसे रथ होता है, that is a chariot. Chariotist means it carries to the dark wintry bed. That after autumn, which season comes? After autumn, winter comes. So he's saying that this wind is carrying the leaves to the wintry bed. That is, it is carrying to the wintry bed, means the winter is coming and now they will lie asleep. Especially the seeds, who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds. Winged seeds, that is seeds which have winged seeds. It is actually expressing the dispersal of the seeds. And there are various kinds of dispersion of seeds. That is, the seeds which are carried by the wind are very light, and they have some sort of wings. So it carries these seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its graves. So he says that these seeds which this autumn wind is carrying, it carries the seeds to their wintry bed, and over there the seeds lie there like a corpse. Corpse क्या होता है? It is a dead body. जैसे कि एक लाश को कब्र में दफन कर देते हैं, इसी तरह से the autumn wind, this west wind of autumn, it is carrying the seeds and it is taking the seeds away and making them lie in the graves. And till when will they stay in the grave? until then azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth. So it is not going to lie there forever. It is only carrying the seeds till springtime. And when the springtime will come, these seeds will begin a new life. He says that seeds over here, they are depicted as ready to die through the simile. Here that the seeds, they are willing to die, but not only die forever, the seeds are dying, they are going to the grave, but again just to take rebirth. And when will they take rebirth? When will the seeds grow? They will grow until the springtime. So this connective until marks the shift from autumn to springtime. So this is the pleasant image. Then azure sister of the spring shall blow. Now azure sister, azure is blue color, sky blue color. So in springtime the sky is very clear and beautiful, and it looks blue and beautiful, sky is clear, and the seeds, they sprout and they spring into flowers. So it's a beautiful image. And here, but this autumn is not a very pleasant weather. Everywhere there are leaves, dead leaves, and there are clouds and all this. So this is not a very pleasing time of the year. So he said these seeds will remain in the grave until the springtime, until your sister of spring, over here spring is also personified because S is capital here. Spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth. Now dreaming earth is actually transferred epithet. He's saying that who is dreaming? Who dreams? Earth is not a human being, that it dreams. So here the people who are actually in winter time, we feel so lazy and we don't want to come out of the beds. So here when everyone is sleeping, that is when they are sleeping, especially the seeds are sleeping, so it will blow her clarion, जैसे कि बिगुल बजाना, blow her clarion over the dreaming earth and fill driving sweet birds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill. So here that the wind actually blows her clarion over the dreaming earth, and then it heralds a new life. Here it says that with living hues and odors. Living hues means it heralds, it is actually indicating new life, new colors and odors. Odors is smell, fragrance. So here with the springtime we have lots of flowers. These flowers are very different colored flowers, deep colored flowers, beautiful flowers, and these flowers also, they give out fragrance. Over the plain and hill, there are flowers everywhere, over the hills as well as the plains. The simile over here echoes pollination of spring. Now, pollination of spring is that springing of the new flowers. Now here, he addresses the west wind as wild spirit, which art moving everywhere. That wild spirit, wild means it is untamable, it cannot be uncontrolled. So it is free-willed spirit, wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver. Hear, oh hear. Now here, this wild spirit. So he says, why does the speaker, that is the poet, he calls spring as wild. Does the wind as a wild spirit destroy maliciously? Is had some ill will against the leaves and ill will against the seeds that it is destroying, or does it preserve instead? Now here it is saying destroyer and preserver. How can anyone be a destroyer and a preserver? That he destroys and also preserves. So this is a very complex image, and he says that how can this be destroyer and preserver? Now here this poem actually this celebrates the elemental rush of the wind, and then over here metaphor succeeds metaphor and simile follows simile, and even the rhythm of this keeps the pace with the tempestuous gale. It is a very strong wind. So he says, or does it preserve? Juxtaposition of both descriptions amplifies the tension of the wind. Now, can you give an example of destroyer and a preserver? It is a destroyer because it destroys all the old dead leaves. It destroys all the old dead leaves, and it preserves the seeds. So, this is the preservation, that though west wind is not a peaceful or pleasant, it is the breath of autumn's being. And then we also know that it drives away the dead leaves and seeds to their wintry bed. And the speaker actually celebrates the force of the west wind because it welcomes the destruction that it causes, because this kind of destruction leads to renewal and rebirth. Rebirth, how renewal and rebirth? Because these seeds which are carried, first of all, the old dead leaves, they are destroyed and they are converted into dust. And then the seeds, they are deposited under the wintry beds. And at the time of spring, when spring comes, it takes the rebirth. That is why it is also a destroyer and a preserver. Now here, he pleads generally with the wind, as we will see repeated in each of the first 3 cantos and final 2 lines. In all the paragraphs, he is actually requesting the west wind. So, how is it this west wind a destroyer and a preserver? Like if you see, it also has a similarity with Hindu god Shivji. Shivji is also a destroyer and a preserver. So, if you feel that the west wind is like Shivji, who destroys as well as preserves. So, I hope you have understood this canto number 1, and then in the next session I will take canto number 2. But first, before that, I would like to tell you the rhyme scheme of this. This is actually terza rima, which is of 3 lines each. Every stanza is of 14 lines, and these 14 lines divided into sub-stanzas of 3, 3, 3, 3, and then there are 2. So this is terza, this is 3 rhyme stanza. And then here if you look at this rhyme scheme, it is being, fleeing, but dead. Like if you say A, then B and A, B, A, then dead and red is rhyming. So B, C, B. Now thou and lo is rhyming. So C, D, C, and D, E, D, and then here you have E, E. So it ends in a couplet. So I'll explain to you when we look at the features of this poem or the figurative speech. So over here we have metaphors, we have similes, we have alliteration, all these things we have. The "O wild west wind," this is an alliteration. Then we have personifications. So this is all for now for this first canto. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can take a screenshot because the annotations are given over here. And You read the poem thoroughly and you will be able to understand it. So thank you. Till we meet again for the next second canto, second stanza.